Good morning. My name is Michael Berry with BSEE's Office of Public Affairs, and I would like to welcome you today to the Orphaned Wells Decommissioning Services RFP presentation. We have 3 speakers today who will provide detailed information and guidance. And as a bonus, if you have any questions during the presentation, please utilize the Q&A function to submit your questions. We will, time permitting, we will address those questions at the end of the presentation. And throughout, there's an email address that you will also see that you can submit questions specifically to the group. This presentation is recorded, and we will be posting it following this presentation. So it's my pleasure to introduce our first presenter, Ms. Krishanda Smith.
Good morning and welcome to the pre-solicitation conference for temporary abandonment decommissioning services in the Outer Continental Shelf. The solicitation number for this project is 140E0122R0003. We hope to provide you with some useful information regarding this project and to also answer any questions that you may have. General questions should be submitted to the chat box during the presentation. Questions that may require a detailed technical response should be submitted to the BSEE Orphaned Decom email identified in the RFP and also in this presentation. Today's presentation will contain reiterations of portions of the Virtual Industry Day presentation in case your firm was unable to attend. However, this conference is focused only on the information used in and associated with the formal RFP. Links to the Virtual Industry Day will be provided later in this presentation. Again, my name is Krishanda Smith, and I am the contracting officer for this project, and I'm located in the Acquisition Management Division in Sterling, Virginia. Next slide, please. I would also like to introduce the project team members, Mr. Rudy Garza, Project Manager Team Lead, Petroleum Engineer, Gulf of Mexico Region, Mr. Eric Hawkins, Contracting Officers Representative, Geologist, Gulf of Mexico Region, and our support stakeholders include district offices in Louisiana and Texas, and support sections in decommissioning, idle iron, oil spill preparedness, and oil spill management divisions. Next slide, please. The request for proposal for this project was issued electronically via sam.gov on March 14th, 2022. The media package referenced in the RFP is sent via FedEx upon receipt of written requests to the BSEE Orphaned Decom email address. If the media package is not received within 2 working days of your request, please contact me immediately. All amendments and any other project-related notifications will be issued to the sam.gov website only. All interested parties should register at the site to receive notifications of any postings. There has been 1 amendment issued to date on March 18, 2022, which conveyed the new proposal submission due date of April 29, 2022. The submission time of 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and the submission location, the BSEE Orphaned Decom 2022 at bsee.gov email remains unchanged. Please ensure that both Volume 1 and Volume 2 are submitted. Amendment 2 is forthcoming. That amendment will convey the publishing of this pre-solicitation PowerPoint presentation and the recording. It will also Should you have any questions regarding the solicitation after this date, an amendment will be issued memorializing all questions received and their responses. This concludes my prepared opening remarks. I want to thank you once again for your interest in our project, and I will now turn the presentation over to Mr. Rudy Garza.
Good morning. My name is Rudy Garza. I'm the project manager and team lead for the Orphaned Well Decommissioning Program. Again, thank you for your interest in attending this virtual program. A few points of clarification before we get started. Today's presentation is to an official RFP document. BSEE is officially requesting bid submission, and as pointed out by Krishanda, they are time sensitive in nature. Because it is an official bid, open discussion is limited. All inquiries are to be channeled through the established email mailbox. Partnering. Partnering of bidders is permitted for bid submission. Partnering opens the opportunity for individual bidders to combine strength and compete for government contracts to present a robust and cost-effective bid. Today's presentation will involve multiple speakers, and they'll introduce themselves as they present. So let's begin by looking at the locations. Along the Gulf Coast in the Gulf of Mexico, we have three primary locations which are the focus of this RFP bid. Starting from the left, out of Texas, you have Matagorda Island, 632, 656, and 657. A total of 9 wells, one of which is in TA status. Closest to shore distance is 13 miles. Water depth approximately 77 feet, and we're talking 7 caisson type structures. To the middle, Highland 589A structure. 2 wells located on that structure. Distance to shore 93 miles. Approximate water depth 477 feet. 8 pile structure. To the far right, West Delta 117H structure. 4 wells located on that structure. Closest distance to shore 27 miles. Water depth 200 feet. And it is a 4 pile structure. Next slide, please. Presented here is the basic customary decommissioning project phases, which will be familiar to many in the audience that are used to or participate in decommissioning projects. Our phase 1 is going to be well decommissioning. The RFP issuance is speaking directly to the temporary abandonment phase. That part incorporates platform boarding, verification, isolation, and what we're calling make safe repairs. We're going to speak to each of those through the course of this presentation. Talking about the well abandonment phase or the temporary abandonment, it is either going to incorporate a single isolation plug or a full temporary abandonment. Again, we will speak to that here shortly. The second part of that will incorporate the well permanent abandonment. That is anticipated to be in a separate mobilization operation and also a different bid opportunity. That will incorporate cutting and pulling all casing strings to 15 foot below the mudline. Followed by that is going to be the pipeline and platform decommissioning. It will entail isolation, flushing, filling, and purging of the pipelines, either cut and bury to 3 foot below the mudline or recovery, depending on the permitting determination. Followed by platform abandonment, which will incorporate complete removal to 15 foot below the mudline. Depending on the accomplished tasks with the well temporary abandonment phase, it is possible that the well permanent abandonment and pipeline and platform decommissioning may all occur in one mobilization, depending on what is accomplished during the temporary abandonment operation. The final phase, of course, being site clearance. The anticipation of that program will be by trawl, in unique cases, sonar scan and/or diver verification. Next slide, please. The presentation of this slide is to provide a pictorial presentation so that you can see the varying differences in structures as we move across the Gulf of Mexico. Starting from the left, Matagorda Island 657 comprises of elevated caisson structures, typically about 75 foot above the water line. And again, the water depth there is approximately 77 foot deep. Matagorda Island 632, those structures typically are closer to the water line, roughly about 30 feet above the water line, commonly referred to as toadstools. And again, the water depth is about 77 foot. Highland 589, 477 foot of water, 8-pile structure, multi-deck structure, presents a unique challenge in and of itself for removal. To the far right, West Delta 117, 4-pile structure, approximately 200 foot of water, and again, a multi-deck structure, which presents its own unique aspect for decommissioning. Next slide, please. The primary focus of this RFP is to the well temporary abandonment. There are a total of 15 wells, one of which is in TA status. A quick summary, which you will find at the bottom of the slide, the well depths range from 2,300 feet to 12,000 feet. Water depths, again, just for reference, 77 feet all the way to 477 feet. The hydrocarbon production history of these wells: Matagorda Island primarily is gas and gas condensate. West Delta and High Island are a black oil and gas combination. Next slide, please. Highlighting the RFP, there are specific sections that are worthy of mention, and we're going to go over those here. The project goal, starting at the top, the project goal is for safe and effective wellbore isolation and elimination of risk from the orphaned wells. The key to that statement is the effective wellbore isolation, which may entail either a single plug or a full TA abandonment, depending upon the difficulty encountered with the individual well in accomplishing basically a single wellbore isolation task or operation. BSEE has a fiduciary responsibility to the public. BSEE reserves the right to amend on a lease or well basis the scope of work, pending the budgetary constraints or other presented conditions. There will be provisions if we do have to change the scope of work where the contractor will be compensated for the project accomplishments up to that point. The contract type is a firm fixed price. There are provisions for scope of work change. The anticipation for this RFP and the format in which it was developed is for the contractor to provide all management, all supervision, labor, materials, supplies, equipment, accommodations, communications, transportation, basically all services that are required to perform the T&A operation, inclusive of safe board and safe board repairs. The contractor shall also provide all requisite preconditioned items. In other words, all permitting, agreements, authorizations, notices to any federal and or state entity affected. All those are to be provided by the contractor through this bid. The contractor shall provide for lodging and accommodations for a maximum of 2 BSEE contracted personnel, 1 for day, 1 for night shift, depending on the type of operation. The quarters, private to semi-private, and of course all the accommodations, including communications, individualized communications setup, including email services. All of that is spelled out again in the RFP. The contractor shall provide all materials and services to include, and this is in addition to the make safe repairs to the structure to ensure a safe working foundation for crews and equipment. They will provide additionally, and again, this is spelled out in the RFP, a working nav aid package and horn, repairs and or replacement to the swing rope to the facility, and of course that is dependent upon the condition of the boat landing, a minimum of 2 fire extinguishers, and also repair and or replacement of emergency water life-saving equipment. Next slide, please. Further to the highlights. The contractor shall supply all services and materials for regulation compliant craneage on location. Where existing, cranes can be inspected, repaired, and utilized. BSEE does not warrant the condition, nor the history, nor any structural condition of the crane. The contractor shall be responsible for all equipment and materials to gain access to and entry to the contracted wellbores of this RFP. Basically what that means is if whatever it takes to access to the wellbore, removal of any materials, shoring up of any structures in the well bay, additionally, any services, rentals, any unique entry requirement, equipment and or services to get into the wellbore are to be captured in the contractor bid for this RFP. The contractor shall provide services to locate and isolate the departing pipeline riser valves for the facility. This is in addition to and part of the make safe repairs for pressure isolation, in addition to, of course, the work that we require to isolate the wellheads in order to work on them. The contractor, and the last two statements basically are very important and are essentially the premise for this bid. The contractor shall be responsible for providing all relevant services and materials respective to a rigless operation. That is the base of this bid. It further goes on to develop and identify items that are part of a rigless operation. It is recommended, of course, that you carefully review and understand all the items that are customary to a rigless operation. For services that are deemed beyond the scope of a rigless operation, which is the final section of this slide, those are actually considered to fall outside the scope of a rigless operation and will require identification, as in justification, work scope, and cost estimate to be included as part of the RFP bid for the contractor. It goes further into developing some identified services such as milling, casing jacks, BOPs, any kind of rig operation, whether it be coiled tubing, snubbing, derrick barge. A lift boat is considered outside of a rigless operation and must be included in the cost estimate, any diving services, and so forth. All of those are required to be identified in the contractor bid. As part of the package of data, which will be covered here shortly, there are individualized working cost estimate templates that are to be utilized for the bid submission to ensure a controlled bid submission where categories can be easily identified and evaluated. Next slide, please. The purpose of this slide is basically just to go over the requirements and the anticipated information to be supplied by the bidder for the purposes of this contract. In addition to the other requirements that are identified throughout the RFP, which some of those will be covered here shortly, what we will anticipate receiving for the contractor bid relative to the well work cost estimates are the following. If you look to the left of this slide, on the facility side, a safe board plan. We're requiring that for every facility. In addition to the cost estimate for the safe board and the make safe repairs, entailing all the information that was previously discussed, there are supplemental pieces of information also detailed in the RFP, and it is strongly recommended that those be reviewed and addressed as part of the bid submission. On the well side, a single plug cost estimate, which will incorporate mobilization and all setup charges, including if craneage is required, all the costs associated with that on location, all of that is to be incorporated in the single plug abandonment cost estimate. Supplement to that, or additional to that, will be a second cost estimate for the full well TA, which will take place immediately after the single plug placement. It is a continuation of those costs to completely finish the well in a TA well format. Additionally, the scope of work per well, so that we understand your premise. Oops, go back, please. Oh, nope. Go back to the slide, please. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so the scope of work per well, and of course a proposed diagram, and we're asking that a full wellbore TA diagram be presented. Understanding that if we have to go to a single plug, we'll make adjustments as we go in that program. To the far right, that is a sample of the roll-up bid sheet for the RFP. Your supporting documentation is what will be supplied and what we've just reviewed on the left hand of the slide. It has been color-coded so that it'll be a little bit easier to follow along. The safe board cost estimate, inclusive of the make safe repairs, are to be presented on this roll-up sheet. Line item B.5.1, if you'll follow it to the right, under the single plug price, that color-coded area is where that price will be entered. For the well in this sample, Matagorda Island 651D001, the single plug cost is identified, of course, under the single plug price column. The supplemental price for a fully TA'd wellbore is accordingly under the final column identified as optional full TA price. They're broken up, of course, by well, and you can follow the same format throughout the remainder of the document. The exception is for Matagorda Island 657D2. The intent there is primarily a verification of the TA status, with the assumption that because it is in a TA status, all the work completed on the well should reflect that. So essentially, we're just asking for a price to go in and perform a TA verification of the wellbore. The reason this is presented in this format for every single well is that the base case will always be a single plug abandonment. Depending on the difficulty encountered to get to that point, the full temporary abandonment is going to be considered an option, depending on where we are under budget constraints, and always these projects will naturally be budget aware. So there will always be an option election point once a single plug is attained in every single wellbore, where an election will be made to continue with that operation, depending upon where we are with budgetary constraints. So we have a base area. Within that base area, you have base cases with each respective well, and elections will be made as the project progresses. Next slide, please. And that pretty much completes my presentation. I'll now turn it over to Eric Hawkins.
Thank you, Rudy. Good morning, everybody. My name is Eric Hawkins, and I'm a geologist in the BSEE Office of Technical Data Management here in New Orleans. I'm also the Planned Contracting Officer's representative for this particular effort. As the contracting officer's representative, I'm going to work closely with Krishanda as the contract officer, with Rudy as the technical lead, with various other BSEE personnel, and obviously with contractor representatives to ensure the administrative side of the contract runs as smoothly as possible before, during, and after operations. In my role as a well data subject matter expert in our technical data office, I manage a variety of well and petrophysical database functions, work with numerous stakeholders across industry to address a variety of data related issues, manage our well log data processing contract, and co-manage the BSEE data center. And I'll talk a little bit more about the data center in just a second, because it's really a good resource with an abundant amount of data that we will actually be providing to bidders as you consider offering a proposal for this procurement effort. Some of you may have already received this, but data is going to be provided in two different sections of the RFP, but as well also with a DVD, which contains a large amount of information that we feel would be best delivered in a digital format. So in section C of the RFP, that's the statement of work. You'll find the list of wells that Rudy was discussing earlier, but most of the data will be found in either section J or the DVD. And section J of the RFP is what's called our list of attachments, and it contains well information such as a geologic and engineering review, well casing and tubing information, wellbore diagrams, and images of pertinent logged sections. It also contains facility information, including caisson schematics and platform assembly drawings and layouts. Now, the DVD that we prepare out of our office contains the majority of the data and all the information that we feel will be really helpful to you. The disc includes a full suite of well log images for all of the wells, an extensive variety of documents and permit documents associated with each well, directional surveys, considerable additional structure and facility information, pipeline reports, and a detailed set of aerial photographs of the facilities themselves. Lastly, that disc also contains templates like the one that Rudy just showed for your bid response. So the cost estimates, the roll-up sheets, and also a template for a daily operations report. And Mike, you can actually move along if you'd like to the next slide. I mentioned the BSEE Data Center a moment ago. Just for those folks who are not familiar with it, it does contain a wide variety of publicly releasable information, and you can find it online at data.besee.gov, and it's also mirrored at data.boem.gov. And I just wanted to give that website a quick plug in case there are folks who are not aware of it, and it's complete resourcefulness for OCS data mining and gathering. And if you ever have any questions for us, you can contact us at TDM, as in Technical Data Management, at besee.gov, and one of our SMEs will be able to assist you. So this collage, and I know data is pretty boring, so luckily this is my last slide on the subject. It's just a small collage of the variety of data you'll receive for review as you consider and prepare making a bid. If you're interested in receiving the DVD that I spoke of, please contact us at the BSEE Orphaned DCOM 2022 email address. You'll see that again in our final slide, and that way our team can ensure that you receive a copy. So appreciate your time. Like I said, I know data is pretty boring, but now I get to turn it over to Krishanda again, our contract officer, who's going to delve into some very important information about bidding and federal contracting. So Krishanda, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eric. I'm going to discuss aspects of the acquisition-related information. First, I want to talk about SAM. What is SAM.gov? SAM stands for System for Award Management. It's a huge database that includes information about all government contractors, and it provides a listing of all government contracting opportunities. It's called the Government Point of Entry. And as a reiteration, all solicitation information and notices pertaining to this project will be posted on the sam.gov website only. So please make sure that you register at the site. Because in order to do business with any federal government agency, you must complete your SAM registration. And if your firm already has a registration in SAM, please ensure your registration is updated because it will expire. If you have any issues at that site, help resources are available on sam.gov help section, or you can go directly to the Federal Service Desk at fsd.gov. Also, you can call them directly Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the number shown. Next slide, please. The government will be procuring decommissioning services utilizing an evaluation and negotiation methodology called Source Selection Best Value Trade-off, in which the technical factors, when combined, are approximately equal to the price. This methodology can be found in Federal Acquisition Regulation Part 15 at the website shown. Best value trade-off method allows the government to award a contract to a prime firm that has not necessarily submitted the lowest priced offer, but through the evaluation process, their proposal represents the best value to the government and is deemed a fair and reasonable price. For additional information regarding the source selection, procurement, and evaluation methodology, please access the live recording and the presentation slides from the Virtual Industry Day at the links below. Next slide, please. As a reminder, prospective offerors are encouraged to submit their best proposal. If there is an initial proposal submission that satisfies the government's need with a high probability of success at a fair and reasonable price, there may be no need to conduct any discussions. On this slide, you're seeing page 2 of the standard form 1442. This is the form that I will sign upon awarding the contract. And all prospective offerors should ensure that this form is completed appropriately. Make sure that blocks 14 through 20C as shown are completed fully by the offeror and included in your proposal submission. If not, your proposal will be considered non-responsive. Also, you may want to refer to RFP Section A for a checklist that may be helpful with proposal preparation. Next slide, please. When a firm is awarded a contract, they are considered the prime firm or the prime contractor. A prime firm is the company that has the primary responsibility for the overall completion of a project. The prime firm is being hired by the project owner, the government, to oversee the entire work process. The government has a contractual relationship with the prime firm only, not with subcontractors. The prime has a contractual relationship with all subcontractors performing the work. The government will communicate directly with the prime firm to address any subcontracted work. Next slide, please. Prime firm responsibilities include obtaining all required bonding. There is a bid bond or a bid guarantee, which provides assurance that the bidder has the expertise to finish the job once selected. This bond is to be submitted along with your firm's proposal. The bid guarantee amount shall be at least 20% of the bid price or $3 million, whichever is less. You're also responsible for submitting payment bonds. This is a type of surety bond which guarantees that a contractor or subcontractor will pay their subcontractors, material suppliers, or laborers. The value of this bond is 100% of the awarded contract value. And there are also performance bonds. This too is a surety bond to guarantee the satisfactory completion of a project by the contractor. The value of this bond is also 100% of the awarded contract value. And I will provide a copy of the payment and performance bonds for execution at the time of contract award. Next slide, please. The prime firm is also responsible for the submission of all invoices. Subcontractors will submit their invoices and support documents to the prime firm. The prime will in turn submit a single invoice package inclusive of their and all subcontractors' invoices and support documents for work performed. Subcontractors cannot submit their individual invoices directly to the government. Invoices shall be submitted electronically to the IPP system at ipp.gov by the prime firm only. The government will inspect all work, confirming work invoiced for has been completed in an acceptable manner, and if so, will approve for processing in that system. Payment. The government shall pay the prime firm via EFT only within 30 days. Could we go to the next slide, please? If the awarded firm is a small business, payment will be made within 14 days, 30 days to the prime firm if a large firm, after receipt and acceptance of the invoice package. If the prime firm is not paid within the time stipulated, interest will accrue for each day payment is not made, and the interest shall be paid to the contractor in addition to the amount invoiced for. The prime firm is also responsible for paying their subcontractors timely. If the prime firm does not pay their subcontractors, the subcontractors can contact me to obtain a copy of your payment bond, and the sub will be able to file a claim with the bonding company for payment. Next slide, please. And lastly, I'll discuss procurement integrity. During the selection process, prospective offers shall send all communication to the contracting officer only via the designated email, and that is the BSEE Orphaned Decom 2022 at BSEE.gov email address. There is to be no communication with any other government employee or official regarding the solicitation. Proposals will be evaluated only by persons on the evaluation board. There will be voting and non-voting members that are associated with the board and the contracting officer. All board members will sign a conflict of interest statement and a non-disclosure agreement. Should any procurement sensitive information be discussed with persons not authorized, a procurement may be canceled after a procurement integrity violation investigation has been conducted. Next slide, please. Once the contract has been awarded, only the contracting officer can execute changes to the contract. The contractor should not proceed with additional work unless a modification has been executed. Should the decommissioning contractor proceed with work directed to be performed by an unauthorized person, the firm is proceeding at their own risk of not being paid. There will be instances in which we will act in emergency processes if need be, and those processes will be communicated to the awarded firm after the contract has been awarded. The contracting officer will also delegate a contracting officer's representative. The decommissioning contractor will receive a copy of the delegation. The delegation may allow the contracting officer representative to direct the contractor to perform work for emergency situations only. So this concludes my presentation. Next, you will hear from Eric again to discuss the Small Disadvantaged Participation Plan and the Small Business Subcontracting Plan.
Thank you, Krishanda. Glad to be back with you folks for a few more minutes to discuss some additional requirements of the RFP, namely the submission of a small business participation plan and a small business subcontracting plan. We have a few slides here that would usually be discussed by the subject matter experts for these topics. Unfortunately, they were unavailable to attend today's session, so you have to listen to it from me. So it'll be a condensed version to some extent. So for a full and complete overview of the different plans, you can access that virtual industry day presentation that Prashanda mentioned earlier to hear directly from those personnel who spoke on and specialize on these topics. The Department of Interior and BSEE as an agency within the department require a small business response as part of the business plan you must include in your proposal. Information about the small business requirements can be found in the RFP in Section L, entitled Instructions, Conditions, and Notices to Offerors. Requirements for the Small Disadvantaged Business Participation Plan for bid submittal can be found in Section L.9 under Evaluation Factor number 5. And information about the requirements for the Small Business Subcontracting Plan can be found in Section L11. Mike, you can move it forward a little bit. So the Small Business Participation Plan. So having this particular plan as an evaluation factor allows us to evaluate the extent to which a bidder is committed to use and incorporate small businesses in the performance of the contract. It also incentivizes the diversification of larger firms to expand a vendor base of smaller firms. And it provides more opportunities for businesses, small businesses, through working as subcontractors for larger firms. The SDB participation plan submitted by a large business will be evaluated on the extent to which it incorporates small business opportunities. And small businesses which submit a proposal will receive maximum consideration under this particular evaluation factor because of their classification as small businesses. Again, you can find more information about this in Section L9. And you can also go to the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, and that's at doi.gov/OSDBU. And Mike, I think you can move it along here. So we're going to now move into a little bit more of what we do as far as handling this at BSEE. So this is more BSEE specific information. And Mike, you can move it along. The BSEE Small Business Program was established to do a number of things: to assist small business concerns by providing the tools to help them maximize contract opportunities, to compete successfully, to develop, and to grow, and also to ensure that large businesses are presenting maximum subcontracting opportunities for a variety of small, hub zone small, small disadvantaged, women-owned small, veteran-owned small, and service veteran disabled-owned small businesses where applicable. The Small Business Subcontracting Plan is a required submission for contracts that are anticipated to meet certain thresholds in the FAR, and if the contract is expected to exceed $750,000 or $1.5 million for construction projects like this, and where subcontracting opportunities exist. You can go back to the requirements there in FAR 19, Part 19.702, FAR 19.702. The DOI subcontracting goals are identified in Section 11 of the RFP. And in addition, the awarded firm must use the electronic subcontracting reporting system to report their subcontracting accomplishments after an award has been made. And again, additional information about the small business program and the subcontracting plan can be reviewed in that virtual industry day presentation, because we had a variety of folks that were presenting for us. So in closing, as a reminder, both of those plans are required for bid submission, and the awarded contract should adhere to the plans to the best of its ability and effort as part of the execution of the contract. Luckily, this, you don't have to hear me talk much more. This concludes our presentation, and I guess we'll turn it back over to Mike to address any questions that have been submitted, unless Prashanda wants to chime in. But there again is the BSEE Orphaned Decom 2022 at BSEE.gov email address, and that's the best way to contact us, and we'll move things to Prashanda or to subject matter experts as needed for review and consideration.
Prashanda, any final comments?
No, thank you everyone for your attendance, and Mike and Rudy, you all may proceed with providing us with any questions that were received.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we've gotten any that have been submitted, so I'm guessing the presenters have done an outstanding job.
Yeah,
And again,
hopefully.
using that email, you can also, anything specific you want to reach out with and get the resources and to the right people.
Well, thank you very much for attending this virtual presentation. Again, these presentations, this and the prior, are being recorded and will be posted. Supplemental information will be available as to how to access these presentations for review. Again, thank you for your time. Should you have any questions, as it is understandable that there's a lot of information to digest, and interested parties are in the process of combing through the documents, understanding the scope, understanding the context of the RFP and what it entails. Any individualized questions specific to that, please submit them to the BSEE Orphaned Decom 2022 email, and we will respond to them accordingly. Pretty much that concludes our presentation for today. Thank you very much for your attendance, and we look forward to a very prosperous project. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our presentation. Have a great rest of your day.